What's up, everybody? Jordan here, back with another video. Today we're talking about 7 things you should remove from your fitness journey. There are some different things, of course, I've experimented with in my years, coaching myself and a bunch of different clients, and just aren't worth it. Just are things that don't serve you in the long run. This is for general population. These are people like me who do fitness because they want to look better, feel better, perform better, aren't necessarily competitive in a sport. I would like to kind of issue that as a prerequisite, because if you are a competitive physique athlete, bodybuilder, powerlifter, strongman, CrossFitter, whatever, and you want to be a pro and you make your money doing this, these things might not necessarily be true for you. This is for your average person who just wants to look better, feel better, and be better. Number one of the things you should eliminate are weighing yourself too often or putting too much stress on the scale. I will kind of preface this to say I do weigh myself every single day currently because I am in a fat loss phase, and I like to see the daily weight, a low for the week, and a weekly average. That's something that I find to be very valuable for data collection. I can really detach myself from that number, however. I can realize within myself that this is just data collection. I'm just getting a number every day to calculate an average for the week. A lot of people that I work with, however, this will mess with their head. The scale will become a very negative part of their day. They stress out about weighing themselves. They make rash decisions based on the weight they see that morning on the scale, and weighing themselves that often just simply is not a good idea. If this sounds like you don't have to weigh yourself that much. Once a week is plenty. Once every 2 weeks is probably fine too. It doesn't have to be every single day. In any other phase but fat loss, I usually weigh myself 1 to 3 times per week just to kind of get a general gauge of where my weight is going in a trend. The bigger part of this, though, is the second portion, to just not put too much stress on the scale. I know that's way more easy said than done, because if you already are stressed about it and have a negative relationship with the scale and the number you see, it can be very hard to break this. However, realize it's just a data collection tool. You are just seeing how your body's changing, what direction things are trending, in order to make proper changes for you or your coach from then on. It's one of the most objective measures of body composition and size that we have. Body measurements will fluctuate and not change very much week to week. Body fat is prone to a lot of error, and visual changes are very subjective. So scale weight is a very good way to measure your progress. However, it's not something you need to become too attached to. It's just a number to calculate a trend. Keep that in mind. Write it on your mirror, write it on your phone. It's just data collection. And if it does stress you out, do it less. You can still make very good progress without weighing yourself at all, or at least just a little bit less. Number 2 is villainizing foods. In almost everything, the devil is in the dosage. This is true essentially across the board in nutrition. Too much water, you're going to have problems. Too much broccoli, you're going to have digestive problems, right? Too much sugar, you're probably going to be overeating calories. Too much artificial sweeteners, maybe not that bad of a thing. If it's in super excess, you could cause some gut issues, but this again is in super excess. There are foods that are good for you and foods that aren't as good for you, and that's totally fine. I definitely subscribe to the idea that there are beneficial foods and not as beneficial foods. If I drink a diet soda to fight off hunger, it's beneficial in that way, but it's not necessarily beneficial to my health. That doesn't make it a terrible thing, however, unless the dosage is just out of control. So just eat with moderation, drink with moderation, consume in moderation, and you'll be just fine. You don't need to be scared or fearful or stressed of different foods. Sugar, carbs, fat, protein, red meat, artificial sweeteners, things like that do not need to be villainized. My spidey senses always tingle. My red flags go up when I see somebody strongly pushing against something in particular, just because they don't realize that behavior and emotion is also a big part of dieting and nutrition. You want to feel happy. You want to feel part of the group. You want to feel like a normal person sometimes and still accomplish your goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's important to be able to feel like you can kind of hang in any situation, as long as you know how to control your quantity, consume with moderation, and get right back on track to your normal plan the next day. Sugar is not going to hinder your progress. Artificial sweeteners aren't going to give you cancer, and carbs or fat are not bad. And that's actually number 3, is avoiding carbs. I think this is a huge mistake people make in their fitness journey. Whether you're dedicated, keto, paleo, something like that, or you just feel like carbs are going to make you fat or hinder your weight loss, it's simply not the truth. Carbs are actually very, very beneficial for energy, for training, and for body composition in the long run, because when you're eating more high quality carbohydrates, you are going to perform better in the gym, burn more calories, gain more muscle. It's kind of similar to taking creatine, right? You don't see a huge benefit from creatine directly right when you take it, but when you take it, you're going to perform just a little bit better every single workout session, every single day, and that's going to add up over time. Eating enough carbohydrates is very similar, let alone the adherence benefits. It's very hard to stick to a low to no carb diet. Speaking of social events, like my last point, it's very difficult to hang in any situation if you can't have carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. Excess calories are the enemy. The problem is carbs are very easy to overeat, especially when they're in a simple processed form. So for the most part, try to eat naturally occurring carbohydrates, things high in fiber, whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruit, potatoes, sweet potatoes, that kind of thing. And then here and there, in moderation, eat the carbohydrate-based sweets you like. Carbs are not the enemy. They will not stop your weight loss. Number 4 is kind of picking on a certain type of training. Do not make circuits, HIIT training, or classes your main form of exercise. Your main form of exercise should be proper strength training in the gym. You might need a trainer for this if you don't know what you're doing. You might need a good workout program, but a basic strength training program 3 to 4 days per week should be the base of your training. You can add classes on top of that. You can do HIIT classes, you can run, you can do interval training, whatever you enjoy doing and what you find is a way that keeps you active and you like to do, you can totally do that. But the base should be resistance training for 2 reasons. One is that if you're eating in a surplus or maintenance, you're going to be gaining muscle and improving your body composition that way, and gaining strength, which will help you in your daily life. And then 2 is if you're dieting, you're going to be retaining muscle. And retaining muscle is very important for good body composition, losing body fat instead of just body weight, and looking your best when you're done with your diet. Add in activity you enjoy on top of the weight training, but always make weight training the base. If you can only train 3 days per week, make it weight training, add in low intensity activity on top of that, add in higher intensity on top of that if you want to. Number 5 is to stress about meal frequency. You can kind of see the common theme here in things you should stop doing is stressing. Don't stress about carbs. Don't stress about certain foods. Don't stress about the scale. Meal frequency is something else you should not be stressing about. Studies show it simply doesn't matter. If you're providing a proper stimulus to your muscles through proper protein intake and proper training that is regular and consistent, it is actually quite hard to just lose all your muscle. You don't need to worry about skipping a meal here and there if it helps you adhere to your diet. You don't need to worry about perfect protein feedings and things like that. For the majority of the population, just eating the right amount of calories and protein for the whole day is going to be plenty to get you to your goals. Meal frequency really will not make too much of a difference. If you do want to optimize your training, there are some things you can do, like eating a pre-workout meal an hour or so before that contains carbs, maybe some protein after your training, maybe even carbs during your training if it's a long endurance type session. Most people, though, simply don't train hard enough, heavy enough, or long enough to need that. And you can do just fine with fasted training, a meal just at your normal meal time and train in between. You don't need to worry about it. And just hitting your total numbers by the end of the day should be focus number 1. I would say even before meal frequency changes, eating high quality sources of protein and carbohydrate should be number 2 before you start worrying about other things. Number 6 is following an IIFYM approach that is devoid of macronutrients. I do track macros. I have my clients track macros if they are okay with it. I think it is probably the best way to diet in today's day and age, with food readily available all the time and a lot of it being very calorie dense. It's the best way to make sure your intake is where it needs to be. A common pitfall people fall into is that they ignore micronutrients and the importance of quality foods. I do think that high quality micronutrient dense foods do make a difference in performance, body composition, energy, and how you feel and look overall. So try to avoid the basic IIFYM, Pop-Tart for breakfast, protein shakes all day, fast food for dinner because you can fit your macros type of thing. Even if you're tracking macros, base your meals around high quality lean proteins like meat and dairy. Add in vegetables and fruit to every single meal. Naturally occurring carbohydrates like pasta, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, and fats on top of that as well if needed. Most of your food should be high quality whole foods that are micronutrient dense because that does make a difference for health, longevity, and fitness. And then the quantity is important as well. The last thing you should avoid is regular deloads. If you have to deload every 4 to 6 weeks in your training, you're probably not managing your volume and intensity properly. This is kind of a hot take, and I think if you're a power lifter and you are peaking for strength competitions, this does not apply to you. I believe you do need to deload if your goal is to get the biggest 1 rep max possible. However, if you're just training for hypertrophy, muscle retention, muscle growth, and you find yourself really, really sore, overreached, and hey, you have to deload every month or two, that's probably a sign your training is not very good and you need to really dial back the volume. Most people are doing way too much in the gym, way too many sets, way too many exercises. Just as kind of a sample, most of my training sessions include about 4 to 5 exercises, about 2 to 3 sets per exercise. Each body part only gets trained about 6 to 10 sets per week. And that is plenty for me to progress and make great progress. If you're doing more than that, double that, triple that, you probably do need to deload quite often, and that is holding you back in the long run. Progression can occur week by week, and you really shouldn't need to deload. Rotating exercises is often enough. If you have questions about this, just drop them in the comments. There are lots more things that you could avoid in your fitness journey that I could get into and rant about, but overall, it's about stressing less. I think this should be enjoyable. This should be something that you want to do for life because you're going to have to. And most importantly, it needs to be simple and something you can do consistently. If you are focused on the basics, consistent with those, and do those things intensely, you will see great progress, change your physique, change your life, change your health, and be a much better person because of it. A lot of stuff goes into fitness and a lot of it just simply doesn't matter in my opinion. And these are some things you should avoid. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already and like this one. If you do like the video, drop a comment with any kind of nutrition or training questions you might have and I will answer them in the next video. See you later, everybody.